Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're going to show you how to play Tellstones King's Gambit. Now this is the latest offering from Riot Games. The only other board game they've put out is Mechs vs. Minions that came out a few years back. It was a massive production with all kinds of minis and lots of sealed envelopes and all this kind of stuff. This is a much more a small scale production, but with just as high quality being put into the production itself. And I'm very excited to show you how to play this game. It's a really cool two-player game, a game you can take anywhere, doesn't take up a lot of table space. And I feel like this would be a great game for in a restaurant, probably a great game to have, if you've got some friends over. It takes like 10 minutes to play, probably be a lot of fun with a couple of beers. So I'm going to show you how to play Tellstones King's Gambit. First, I do want to mention our sponsor, Board Game Co. This is a great website where you can go and buy, sell, and trade games. If you're just looking to build your collection out and you want to really start taking up more space in your house with more games, go and buy games from them. They have a great selection of games to choose from, but you can also sell games to them. Maybe you need to have some more space for other things in your house. Well, go over there, sell games to them. They will pay you for the games that you no longer want. And of course, you can always trade games with them. Now, this is a really cool feature where if you have a Board Game Geek account and you have built a trade list on Board Game Geek, you are able to link them right into that. They will see what games you have for trade, what games you want in trade, and they will compare that to their stock and build a trade list right there on their website for you, and that will streamline the process. You also can trade without a Board Game Geek account. Not a big deal, just a little bit more legwork on your part. Board Game Co. makes it easy to buy, sell, and trade your way into a better collection. Click on the link in the description below so they know I sent you over there. All right, let's get down to the game topper. I'm going to show you how to play Tellstones King's Gambit. Tellstones King's Gambit is played with these 7 stones. Each stone, as you can see, is inscribed with its own unique symbol. The hammer, the scales, the knight, the crown, the sword, the shield, and the flag. The goal of the game is to score 3 points. To start the game, lay out the playmat horizontally between the 2 players. One player will be on this side and the other on this side. Next, place all 7 stones face up beside the playmat so both players can see all the symbols clearly. This is known as the pool. Next, each player takes a scoring token and places it beside the mat on their side. Traditionally, the scales are placed first in the middle of the mat. However, players may also randomly choose the first stone to be played. It is also customary to allow the oldest player to choose whether to go first or second, but this also may be chosen randomly. Finally, each player gets one of these reference cards. And that's the setup. On each player's turn, they take one of these 6 actions to either manipulate the line or try to score points. After a player resolves their chosen action, their opponent then takes a turn. Let's talk about each action the player may choose. The first action is place. The player points to a stone in the pool and tells their opponent where to place it on the line. So for instance, I may tell my opponent to place the crown on the line. This stone must be placed face up to the left or right of the stones that are already in play. The next action is hide. The player points to a face-up stone on the line and tells their opponent to flip it face down. The stone does not change its position on the line, so perhaps I point to the crown, and my opponent then would flip the crown face down. The third action is swap. The player points to any 2 stones on the line, they can be face up, face down, or one of each, and tells their opponent to swap their positions. The stone's face up or face down orientation will not change during the swap. So my opponent might tell me to swap these 2 stones. And so then I would swap them just like that, keeping this one face down and this one face up. I could then tell my opponent to swap these 2 stones. Again, both stay in their orientation, and it's important not to look at what they are when they're being swapped. Keep in mind that for these 3 actions, place, hide, and swap, the current player selects which stones are affected, but the opposing player actually carries out the action. The fourth possible action is peek. Without showing their opponent, the current player looks at the symbol on any face-down stone on the line and then returns it to the same position. So for instance, I might choose this one and peek at it carefully, making sure my opponent doesn't see it, and place it back down on the line. Now, if the active player's opponent scored 1 point during their most recent turn, the active player may instead peek at up to 3 face-down stones in any order. Now, obviously, there's only 2 face-down stones here, but since my opponent did score 1 point on their most recent turn, I'll go ahead and peek at both of these face-down stones and see what they are. Now, these final 2 actions are the actions that allow players to score points. The first of these 2 actions is challenge. The player points to a face-down stone on the line and tells their opponent, "I challenge you to name this stone." So maybe I challenge my opponent to name this one. The opponent then must try to name that stone. Upon giving their answer, the stone is flipped face up. If the opponent guessed correctly, they would score 1 point. So in this case, if they guessed shield, they would score 1 point. However, if they guessed incorrectly, perhaps they said crown, then the active player scores 1 point. Either way, this stone will now remain face up until it is flipped face down again by a hide action. The second scoring action is called boast. If the player believes they can name all of the face down stones on the line, they tell their opponent, "I know all the hidden symbols." The opponent now has 3 options. The opponent can say, "I believe you, have a point," in which case the player simply scores a point without naming any stones. The opponent can say, "I don't believe you, prove it," in which case the active player must now name and then flip each of the face down stones. The active player may do this in any order they like. The third option for the opponent is to say, "I don't care, I know them too," in which case the opponent has stolen the boast. Now the active player has a choice to make. They can either say, "I believe you, have a point," in which case the opponent has now taken 1 point without naming anything. Or the active player can say, "I don't believe you, prove it," in which case the opponent now must name and flip every face down stone in whatever order they like. If either player correctly names all face down stones on the line during a boast, they win the game immediately, regardless of how many points they have already scored. On the other hand, if they fail to correctly name at least 1 stone during a boast, they immediately lose the game. King's Round is the name of the 4-player variant included with King's Gambit. 2 pairs of players sit alternately around the table, so their opponent is always to their left and to the right, and their ally is always across from them. Each player always tells the opponent to the left how to manipulate the line. Play also always proceeds clockwise. Allies are welcome to discuss tactics or their knowledge of the line at any time, but it must be done openly in such a way that everyone at the table can hear. During a peek action, instead of looking at the stone themselves, the active player may nominate their ally to look at the stone instead. If the active player's opponent just scored a point in their most recent turn, then the active player and their ally may look at up to 3 stones total between the 2 of them. So if I'm the active player, maybe I will peek at this one, and then I'll allow my ally to peek at whichever 2 stones they wish to. While challenges in boast certainly do target an entire team, the opponent on the active player's left is still the one who declares how they will respond. That being said, boasts must be completed by the team as a whole, alternating back and forth, each naming and flipping any remaining face-down stones. All right, so there you go. That's everything you need to know to play Tellstones King's Gambit. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. Please subscribe. Click the bell so you don't miss any future videos. Also, we have a contest. We have a giveaway going on. That's going on in this video right here. We've got 6 different games we're giving away. Lots of great stuff over there. Be sure to check that out and find out how you can get involved in that contest. All right, until next time, if you're bored online, bored offline.